In the center of the Borneo jungle, a local group is chasing a tiger when they see that the animals around are very nervous. Thinking it's because of the ferocious animal, they continue searching for the feline that jumps on the men while fleeing from something even more dangerous, an immense anaconda that starts chasing the local man through the jungle. During the escape, the guy ends up being swallowed by the serpent and only manages to break free by stabbing his knife into the animal's body. But when he runs again, he ends up in a small lagoon where he is finally eaten by the anaconda. At the Byron and Mitchell research offices, Dr. Jack Byron presents a revolutionary discovery, the Pyrenea immortalis, blood orchid, which could be the fountain of youth. Described in 1892 by explorer Houghton, the rare Borneo orchid has a peculiar cycle. It sleeps 7 years and blooms for only 6 months. Based on the research of Sam Rogers, his former student and assistant, Jack explains that the plant contains a chemical capable of significantly prolonging cellular life. The executives, initially skeptical, are impressed with the pharmaceutical potential. However, there's a critical problem. The original sample has degraded, and they need more orchids to continue the research. The challenge is urgent. The orchid will be in bloom for only 2 more weeks. Despite the enormous costs and risks involved, the executives immediately approved the expedition. Gordon Mitchell, representative of the Wexel Hall Company, agrees to finance the mission, seeing the potential for billions in profits. The team must leave immediately for Borneo before it's too late. Hey, what would you do if you were lost in a jungle full of giant snakes? The movie I'm going to summarize is called Anacondas, The Hunt for the Blood Orchid. It's a very good classic movie that mixes horror and adventure. Of all the Anaconda movies, this is the best. It's a movie that shows how greed can be dangerous. That's why I invite you to subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and leave a like to receive the best recaps. The scientific team arrives at the port of Padrang, Borneo with 6 people. Dr. Jack Byron, leader, Sam Rogers, botanist, Gordon Mitchell, businessman, Cole Burris, technology, Dr. Ben Douglas, doctor, and Gail Stern, Wexel Hall executive. They face a problem. There's no boat available. Sam's company had promised a boat, but all companies stopped working because of the rainy season. Local captains refused to navigate upriver for the next few weeks, just when the orchid will stop blooming. The situation becomes difficult until they discover a local captain named Jin Soon, who takes anyone upriver for the right price. Jin Soon is actually Bill Johnson, an ex-military American who has lived in Borneo for years. He came to the region to start a new life and forget war traumas. Bill offers to rent his boat, Bloody Mary, for $25,000, but to pilot it he asks for $50,000. Even with the high price, they have no choice. Bill is the only option. He comes with his partner, Tran Wu, and Kong, a pet monkey. The boat seems to be in terrible condition, but it works. With everyone inside, Jack meets with the captain and shows the map of the place where the explorers found the first orchid. But Bill sees that the path they followed must be full of water and suggests they go up slowly to see the way. Racing against time, Cole, the team's geography specialist, looks at his computer and discovers that the best option is to follow another path. Now that the path is decided, Bill goes upriver while the scientists talk to the company to report their situation. But because of the rains, the signal starts to fail, and they're left unable to talk to anyone. With nothing to do, the group spends the day navigating until it's finally time for food. Seeing the food on the table, Kong, Bill's pet monkey, can't resist the bananas and goes to the table to try to get one. But since he has already eaten, the man pushes him away and he decides to go to the boat's roof to get some fruits from the trees. Not seeing that his little animal left, Bill continues with the boat moving and Kong ends up being left behind, having to scream to try to get the attention of whoever takes care of him. After a while, the little monkey gives up and starts eating the fruit when he's found by a giant snake that starts chasing him. Scared, Kong runs into a tree trunk and hides, hoping the snake won't catch him. But soon it manages to find its prey and the monkey is forced to climb a tree, being pursued by the anaconda that slowly climbs after him. From inside the boat, Bill hears Kong's desperate screams, not knowing they're from his pet. He doesn't realize he's missing until the next morning. The tension increases when Gail, trying to make a phone call to the office, slips and falls into the river. To save her, Sam tells Tran to slow down the boat and everyone goes to the back to help. But before they can get her out of the water, the blood in the water attracts the attention of a crocodile that attacks her from behind, forcing Bill to jump into the water to save the girl. With his help, Gale manages to return to the ship, and the captain stays behind to fight against the crocodile, stabbing the giant crocodile's eyes. While Tran aims with a gun, but can't shoot to avoid hitting his captain, suddenly the crocodile starts to make its attack and sinks with Bill right after. After about 10 seconds, the man appears safe and sound and pulls his knife from the dead crocodile's head, returning to the boat as a true hero. But before they realize it, the giant snake appears behind them and eats the dead crocodile's carcass. Not knowing the danger they're running, everyone gathers around the table while Ben stitches Gale's arm. But while they're distracted, Kong falls in the middle of the group out of nowhere, giving everyone a big scare. After calming his monkey, Bill goes to Jack and asks to talk alone in the cabin. The captain warns that the river is getting fuller and says they'll have to go around another way, but knowing this will delay the trip by 2 days, Jack offers Bill another $50,000 to ignore the dangers and continue forward anyway. With the deal closed, the captain leaves Tran in command and goes to rest, but wakes up at dawn when he realizes that the logs in the water damage the rudder. To fix the boat, Bill works on the engine and then tries to accelerate the boat, but the propeller is completely stuck and they end up missing the curve, heading toward a very violent waterfall. With no way to save themselves, Bill just watches as his boat plunges downriver and sinks in the shallow waters. With everyone adrift, the captain tells them to swim toward the shore without suspecting that the anaconda is right behind them and almost eats Sam. But at the last second, the woman manages to get out of the water and the snake decides to turn around for no clear reason. Now that the boat has been destroyed, the survivors begin to check the equipment that's left and discover that only one phone remains, which by some miracle still has signal. Knowing it will take days for the nearest patrol to reach them, Bill decides he'll call a friend who navigates the area and will arrange to meet him at the shore a few kilometers ahead. The man then says that if they go around the water, it will take 2 days to reach the meeting point, but if they cut through the jungle, they'll arrive before nightfall. Even though it's dangerous, the group accepts the suggestion, and Bill calls his friend John to arrange the meeting point. With everything settled, the man ends the call and leads the group through the jungle until they reach the edge of a river. With no way to go around, Bill decides to cross on foot, and the scientists follow him without realizing that the anaconda is already swimming around them. Suddenly, Cole feels something passing between his legs and screams to his companions to warn them. But Bill thinks it's just a fish and tells them to keep moving. At the end of the line, Ben is arguing with Gale when he's pulled underwater by something. Not knowing what happened, the survivors run toward the doctor, who gets up very injured only to be eaten by the snake a few seconds later. In panic at the size of the creature, the group runs to the other side of the shore and stops a few kilometers ahead to talk about what happened. Bill tries to calm the group by explaining that anacondas are territorial and that a snake of that size usually hunts alone in a large area. He guarantees they shouldn't encounter another snake of that size for miles, and that the one that killed Ben will be sleeping for weeks digesting its meal. With hope, the survivors continue their journey to the boat that will allow them to return home. But Jack and Mitchell are against this and say they need to find the orchids before the blooming season ends. Although he manages to convince the rest of the team, Bill doesn't agree and says that once they reach the boat, the expedition is over and the only place he'll take the crew is home. Thinking about the money, Jack says they had a deal, and the captain tells him he can keep the money if he wants, but that under no circumstances will he take them to the orchids. With this clarified, Bill returns to leading the group and tells Sam about the deal he made with Jack to continue following the route, blaming himself for accepting the extra $50,000 and for Ben's death. A few kilometers ahead, the group is passing through tall grass when Mitchell notices a giant leech behind Cole's neck. To help him, Bill takes a lighter and uses the flames to make the parasite let go. But when he lifts the man's shirt, he realizes that dozens of other leashes are stuck to his back feeding. While Bill removes the parasites from Cole, Mitchell treats the wounds on his feet and tries to put on his boot when he's stopped by Tran, who warns him there's a stone spider inside. When he hears that this bug is capable of paralyzing an adult man for 2 days, Jack becomes interested in using it in his research and puts it in a jar to take back to the laboratory. Not far away, John is navigating toward the meeting point when something hits the boat and knocks over his drink. Curious to discover what it was, the man stops the boat and approaches the water thinking it's a log, but to his misfortune, it's another anaconda that climbs onto the boat and grabs him by the leg, pulling him while he tries to hold onto the helm. With absurd strength, the snake manages to eat John, who accidentally reactivates the engines, making the boat accelerate out of control and crash into the shore. From afar, the survivors can see the flames of the explosion and decide to go investigate, finding John's boat in pieces. Thinking he was drunk and drowned when he fell from the boat, Bill asks the survivors to search for resources in the wreckage, and Jack finds the briefcase containing John's revolver, deciding to take it with him without telling anyone. Even with the explosion, the group manages to find valuable resources, and Mitchell takes the fuel tank while Tran finds a bag full of flares. Tired, everyone in the group sits down to recover their energy, and Mitchell becomes curious to see the carcass of some fish on the shore, wondering what animal could have done this. Knowing the area, Tran says it was the natives and that there should probably be a village nearby, so all they have to do is find the village to be able to borrow a boat and return to civilization. With their new objective defined, they walk through the forest again until they find John's body covered in mud near a tree. Realizing he was spit out by an anaconda, Bill comes to the conclusion that there are more snakes in the forest and states that the one that ate John must still be hungry, since it put the food out in the middle of digestion. Confused, Gale remembers that he said anacondas are territorial, and Bill confirms the information, but adds that during breeding season, the males start walking through the forest looking for a female. In other words, there must be dozens of hungry snakes around them. Preparing against time, the survivors continue their journey and finally reach the village, but different from what they imagined, they find the place completely empty, except for a lifeless anaconda with the body of an indigenous man inside it. With no one to talk to, the group goes to the dock and discovers that the natives took all the boats during their escape, so they'll have to build one with their own hands if they want to return home. Together, the survivors begin to dismantle the indigenous huts and use the materials to build their own raft. While everyone is working, Jack takes a break to wash his face and finds an orchid stuck in the basin and gets very excited about the discovery. Excited, he calls Sam to see his discovery, and they finally understand why the anacondas are so big. Because thanks to the orchid's properties, the snakes are living longer and their size is getting bigger and bigger. Excited, Jack says this is proof that they were right, and once again insists they should get the orchids before going home. But the rest of the group disagrees and tries to dissuade him, including Mitchell. Even so, the man insists they should go after the flower, and Sam refuses, telling everyone that he offered Bill another $50,000 to stay on the flooded river. Disgusted with this attitude, Mitchell and the others refuse to cooperate with Jack, who leaves furiously, leaving the others to build the raft while he sits doing nothing. After spending the night working, the group finishes the raft and ties it in place, giving Mitchell time to go to the main hut to take care of the wounds on his foot. Looking for medicine, the man opens Jack's backpack and finds the jar with the spider in one of the pockets, but since it's nothing useful, he puts it aside and continues searching. At the bottom, Mitchell finds the box containing John's gun and a phone that's still working, and gets furious because his partner didn't tell him anything. While he's trying to call emergency services, Jack appears and does everything he can to convince him to continue after the orchid. But when Mitchell refuses, the researcher doesn't hesitate to open the jar and throw the spider on his friend's arm, causing him to be bitten. While Mitchell screams in pain, Jack recovers the phone and pistol and leaves the hut while his former partner enters a state of paralysis. Near the shore, the survivors are putting their belongings on the raft when Jack arrives, telling them not to bother Mitchell, but Sam finds his attitude suspicious and decides to go to the hut to see what happened there. The girl finds the man already completely paralyzed and notices the bite mark on his arm. Without warning, Mitchell sees the anaconda behind Sam and tries to use his eyes to warn her, but the girl doesn't understand and leaves the hut to ask what Jack did. While Mitchell is alone with the creature, Sam begins to accuse Jack and starts a discussion that only ends when they realize the researcher is already being eaten. Wanting to help, everyone runs to the hut and leaves Jack alone with the raft, giving him the perfect opportunity to escape with it. With no idea of what he just did, the survivors set fire to the hut in an attempt to eliminate the snake and run back to the shore. But now that Jack took the raft and they burned the last remaining hut, the group has no choice but to go after the scientist and recover the boat. Knowing exactly where he's going, Sam suggests cutting through the jungle and catching Jack by surprise when he goes to get the orchids. But the journey isn't easy, and they pass by several snakes that try to separate. Fleeing from the predators, the group ends up falling down a cliff and ending up in one of the snake's lair. But with no way to return the same way, they're forced to explore the cave until they find another exit. In the middle of the journey, Cole drops his flashlight in the water and stops to recover it, but this ends up making him stay behind and separate from the group. To save the geologist, Tran goes back a bit and manages to find the man completely hysterical near some skeletons. Now that they're late, the two speed up to join the group, and Tran ends up being careless, causing him to step on a crack in the floor and sink into the narrow passage. With no way to return alone, the man fights for his life while Cole tries to save him. But while breathing in one of the air pockets, Tran ends up being found by an anaconda and is eaten while still underwater. In panic, Cole runs desperately and manages to find the group that's already crawling toward the exit. But without realizing it, Cole ends up leading the anaconda to his friends, who have to hurry to avoid being caught. After the three passed, the geographer approaches the hole and ends up getting stuck in the rocks, forcing the others to pull with all their strength before being eaten. Through teamwork, the group manages to free Cole, and Sam uses a machete to cut off the snake's giant head. Happy to be alive, the geographer starts celebrating until he's caught from behind and carried by another monster, forcing Bill and the others to run after him to save him. Searching through the forest, the survivors find Cole being crushed, and Bill decides to throw his knife at the creature's head, which leaves immediately, dropping his friend to the ground, practically unharmed. A few kilometers ahead, Jack stops the raft in the area where they found the orchids and continues searching on foot, finding hundreds of flowers after just a few minutes of walking. While he's collecting his precious orchid, the survivors sneak through the forest and plan to take the raft while Jack is distracted, but accidentally step on a branch and alert the man to their presence. Not knowing they've been discovered, they reach the boat and Sam starts going through Jack's backpack when he appears behind her. While the woman distracts the scientist, Bill takes his knife and prepares to throw it, but Jack notices the movement and fires a shot before he can do anything. With everyone surrendered, Jack takes them back to the orchids and knocks out Bill to avoid problems, forcing Gale to tie up Cole afterwards. With no more threats, the man leaves Sam with the mission of filling the bags with orchids, forcing her to cross a log over the snake's nest to reach the flowers. Fighting against panic, the woman manages to balance and reaches the flowers on the other side. But while she's crossing back, the log starts to give way, and Jack tells her to throw her backpack down. With no options, Sam obeys, and Jack prepares to leave when Bill appears and surprises him with a punch to the back, making the scientist drop his briefcase a few meters from the nest. Since he's injured, Bill ends up at a disadvantage and is knocked out by Jack, who lets him go after the backpack. But as soon as he recovers the orchids, the man ends up being bitten by the stone spider that managed to escape from the jar. While being slowly paralyzed, Jack ends up slipping from the cliff and falling in the middle of the nest along with his backpack, being eaten by the snakes while still alive, just like Mitchell. A few meters above on the path, Cole and Gale try to help Sam, whose leg is trapped in a vine. With so much weight, the log gives way and the girl hangs upside down, becoming a target for one of the anacondas in the nest. In panic, Sam starts struggling, and the vine ends up giving way under her weight, making her fall among the anacondas just like Jack. By some miracle, she manages to stay safe and gets out of the water without becoming the snake's lunch. But even so, one of the snakes pursues her and attacks Gale, who defends herself with a fuel canister, leaving the mutant creature's mouth full of flammable liquid. To end everything once and for all, Bill takes Jack's revolver and tries to shoot the anaconda, but to his misfortune, the gun is out of ammunition. In the end, it's Cole who saves the day with a flare gun, The man shoots into the snake's mouth, which starts to catch fire and falls back into the nest, exploding near the other anacondas and causing a landslide that eliminates all of them. After so much suffering, the survivors can finally get on the raft and return home safe and sound along with Kong. And that's how the movie ends. What rating would you give this movie? If you want, I can bring new anaconda summaries. In the first pinned comment, I'll leave the summary of the very good anaconda movie I've already made. I guarantee that if you liked this one, you'll really like the other one too. So that's it. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to be notified of new recaps.